I stood at the edge of the field where the tents were going up, hands folded, watching the girls laugh beneath strings of light bulbs someone had strung like a halo over the grass. Augusta had curled her hair for the party, and her dress sparkled faintly when she moved. I waited, just waited, for her to glance my way. She didn't. I stepped closer, feet careful on the uneven dirt. She turned, saw me, and something in her face shifted. Not unkind, just firm. "Grandma, you must be tired. Maybe you should head home. Everything's handled here." Her words were smooth, practiced. The kind people use to move chairs out of the way. I nodded. I didn't argue. What would have been the point? I walked back to my car. The party kept going behind me, voices rising like birds, the clink of punch cups, someone tuning a guitar. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time before starting the engine. No music. No news. Just the engine's soft hum and the ache in my chest, dull, but persistent. It wasn't the dismissal that hurt. It was the ease with which she'd done it. The way it had taken her no effort to decide I didn't belong. Something had shifted. Something small. But permanent. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove the long way, through the old part of town where the sidewalks are cracked and the porches sag. Where the trees are so thick with memory they seem to hum. I passed the library where I used to take Vanessa when she was little, back when Saturday mornings meant sticky fingers, overdue books, and hot chocolate in paper cups. I don't know why I went that way. Maybe I just needed to remember a time when being needed came as naturally as breathing. I pulled into the driveway just as the porch light clicked on. Automatic, like everything else in this house now. The kitchen was clean, too clean. I didn't cook much anymore. Not since Vanessa started hosting holidays, and Augusta became too busy for Sunday meals. Still, I boiled water for tea. Not because I wanted any, but because it gave my hands something to do. The kettle whistled in the way it always has, high and urgent, and I thought, even the appliances still call out for me. I sat at the table with my cup, staring at the faint rings in the wood from years of meals and spills and conversations. It used to be so noisy in here. Music from the radio, chatter, shoes kicked off near the door, dogs that needed feeding, laundry baskets half sorted. Now there was only quiet. Not the kind that soothes. The kind that settles in your chest like dust. I sipped my tea and thought about the party. About Augusta's face when she told me to go. Polite. Controlled. No hint of mischief or fondness. Not like when she was little and used to braid my hair and call me her glam mama. No. This was a different girl, poised, confident, already practiced in the gentle art of exclusion. I suppose it had been building for a while. The small things you notice only when they accumulate, like sediment in a jar. At first, it was Augusta's birthday 2 years ago. I brought a framed photo of her mother when she was 8, holding a puppy on Christmas morning. I thought she'd love it. Instead, she set it down carefully on the gift table and never picked it up again. Left it behind with the torn wrapping paper and empty cups. Or the time I suggested she pack a cardigan for her trip abroad. "Grandma," she said, laughing in that way that isn't really laughing, "we're not going to be cold in Madrid." But I noticed she packed a cardigan anyway. Just not the one I offered. And Vanessa, my own daughter. The one I raised with thrift store shoes and late-night reading sessions when money was tight and her teeth hurt from those horrible wire braces we could barely afford. She doesn't even remember that anymore. She thanks her job, her husband, the school counselor. Everyone but me. I've always been someone who gives. Quietly. Without ledger or applause. When my husband died, I was 64. The silence of that first night was unbearable. I remember sleeping with the TV on, the volume barely audible, just to feel like someone else was breathing in the house. I could have stopped there, settled into the slow decline everyone expected. Crosswords, early dinners, church luncheons. But I didn't. I opened books. Took online courses on fixed income portfolios and compound interest. I taught myself how to spot a market correction before it landed. Learned about municipal bonds, dividends, laddered CDs. I didn't do it for pride. I did it because I had to. Because I knew Vanessa wasn't prepared, and Augusta would need more than what the world offers to a girl without a name that opens doors. It started small, $180,000 from Noel's life insurance. I didn't tell them. I just invested. By year 2, I had $245,000. By year 5, I had $580,000. This year, it crossed $730,000. I used it as quietly as I built it. Private school tuition. Paid in full, under the name of an anonymous donor. Vanessa thought it was her ex-husband's father. I let her believe that. She needed someone to thank. The braces. Paid in cash, through a trust one called Golden Grove Family Aid. The Jeep Augusta drives. Leased under my name, registered to a P.O. box. She assumed it came from a college fund. No one asked where the fund came from. I never told them. Because I didn't need to. Because love, to me, was never loud. It was never about recognition. It was the decision to give, even when it hurt. To stand behind the curtain and clap quietly while others took the stage. But now, I wonder if I made a mistake. Because the party tonight, the one I wasn't welcome at, was paid for, in part, by a catering invoice I covered 3 weeks ago. They had the gall to ask me to spot them until payday. Vanessa said it was just to keep things smooth and promised she'd pay me back. She won't. She never does. And I didn't mind, truly. Not until tonight, when I saw that even the seat I once held, not just at the table, but in their hearts, had been reassigned. Maybe I am tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind that accumulates over years of being overlooked. Of being needed, but never seen. I sat at the table until the tea went cold. Then I stood and walked into the den, pulled open the cabinet where I keep the old tax folders and bank statements. I opened the latest binder, August 2025, and flipped to the back. There it was, Augusta's tuition for her spring semester, scheduled for auto payment next week. $14,800. I stared at the page for a long time. Then I reached for a pen. The pen hovered above the paper. I didn't cross anything out. Not yet. I simply circled the number, slowly, like I was underlining a memory I hadn't wanted to face. $14,800. For a girl who wouldn't make eye contact with me tonight. Who smiled, but only out of politeness. Who forgot I existed the moment her friends arrived. Next page. $60,000, earmarked for Augusta's college fund. Automatically transferred each quarter, split between 2 investment accounts tied to a tax-advantaged trust I'd opened 3 years ago. Next page. $8,150, a medical emergency fund for Vanessa. Used 3 times this year alone. Twice for dental work. Once for a veterinary emergency that somehow became my financial responsibility because you're the only one with steady cash flow, Mom. I turned back to the beginning of the binder. It wasn't the numbers that hurt. It was the pattern. The way the withdrawals lined up with birthdays I wasn't invited to. Vacations I learned about from Facebook photos. School plays where no one saved me a seat. The ledger was honest in a way their voices had not been. For a moment, I simply sat there, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator and the slow, rhythmic tap of the kitchen faucet, 1 drop every 7 seconds, a minor leak I'd meant to fix for over a year. Everything in this house held some echo of my love. That faucet. I installed it myself when the old one rusted. The dining room chairs. Sanded and stained by hand. Even the ivy out front, trimmed weakly, shaped into a soft wave because Augusta once said it looked like ocean foam that way. I gave quietly. And they accepted easily. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't even feel anger, not the kind that flames. What I felt was a steadier burn. A slow warming of the chest. Not pain, but awareness. Not loss, but clarity. I closed the binder, rose from the chair, and went to the drawer by the sink. Inside was the small, worn notebook I hadn't opened in nearly a decade. Noel had called it my life book, a place for notes, wishes, goals. I used to scribble in it when he was still alive. Recipes. Plans. Dreams. I turned to a fresh page. And I began to write. Not a letter. Not a budget. A list. Private school tuition, years 7 to 12, $72,000. Braces and dental work, $11,400. Jeep lease payments, $14,000. Travel, enrichment programs, study abroad fees, $10,000 plus. Clothing allowances, incidentals, $4,200. College fund deposits, $60,000. Emergency fund withdrawals, $8,150. Catering invoice for Augusta's birthday party, $2,600. Miscellaneous gifts, rent assistance, holiday expenses, approximate $10,000. Total, $192,350, conservative estimate. I stared at the sum for a long time. Then I wrote a single sentence beneath it. This is not failure. This is awakening. I put down the pen. Somewhere in the house, a floorboard creaked. Old plumbing settling. My own breath audible in the silence. I stood and walked to the bookshelf in the living room, reached behind the row of gardening books, and pulled out the lockbox I hadn't touched since last winter. Inside were the original documents for Augusta's car loan, Vanessa's emergency account authorizations, and the access forms for both trust accounts. There was also a card from Noel. A birthday one, the last he ever wrote me. On the front, 2 cranes flying side by side, wings open. Inside, in his neat, looping hand. Still flying with you. Always. I closed the card, placed it gently aside, and took the documents to the kitchen table. That's where I stayed for the next 2 hours. I called Cameron, my financial advisor, first thing in the morning. He picked up on the second ring. "Good morning, Ruth," he said, his tone cheerful, unaware. "Cameron," I said, my voice clear, "we're making some changes." There was a pause. "Of course. What are we adjusting?" "Everything." He didn't ask questions. That's why I trusted him. By 10:15, the automatic transfers were cancelled. The trust deposits paused indefinitely. Augusta's car loan. I removed my name. The emergency fund. I drained it and moved the remaining balance into a separate account, one they didn't have access to. A new password, a new structure, a new boundary. Cameron confirmed each change as we made it. By 10:57, it was done. 42 minutes. No arguments. No announcements. Just quiet realignment. I didn't send messages to Vanessa or Augusta. I didn't explain. If they asked, I'd answer. But not today. Today, I sat by the window with a cup of warm tea, the good kind, and watched the wind shift the leaves across the lawn. The air smelled of cinnamon. My back ached. My ankles were stiff. But my spirit? Unburdened. And that, I thought, is what dignity feels like when it returns to you, slow and quiet, like sunlight filtering into a house no one realized had gone dim. The text started the next morning. Vanessa, first. Mom, the bank says you're no longer on Augusta's car loan. Is that a mistake? Then a second, 5 minutes later. Also, did something happen with the tuition fund? The school called me, they haven't received the fall deposit. I let the phone buzz on the counter. The screen lit up again. Mom. Then Augusta. Grandma, I'm freaking out. Did something happen with the car? The app says I'm the only account holder now. It won't even let me call support. Also, did you stop the school payments? I need to know what's going on. She didn't even use punctuation on that last one. Just panic, packed tight into her thumbs. I didn't reply. Not right away. I needed space from their need, their confusion, their belief that all things continued unless told otherwise. By noon, Vanessa called. I watched the screen flash, listened to the first few rings. Then silence. Not 10 minutes later, she tried again. I picked up the third time, my voice calm. Hello. Mom, what is going on? Her voice was tight, brittle. Why are all the accounts frozen? Augusta just found out she can't get her tuition extension. I had to cover her lab fees with a credit card. That sounds stressful, I said. A pause. Did something happen? Are you sick? Or is this a glitch? No, I'm not sick, I said evenly. And it's not a glitch. Another pause. Then what is it? There was a long silence on my end. I could hear her breathing, light and fast. In the background, a dog barked. Probably the neighbors. This is the new arrangement, I said finally. What? Her voice sharpened. I've made changes. The funds are no longer accessible. What do you mean? You've always, Mom, we've depended on that tuition support. And the emergency account. It's no longer available, I said. You can't just do that. I can. And I have. She went silent. I could picture her face, tight mouth, hand in her hair, pacing. Augusta needs that money. She's worked so hard. I know. And I've supported her for a long time. She's your granddaughter. I'm aware. You're punishing us. No, I said gently. I'm protecting myself. That's when she hung up. It didn't feel good. But it didn't feel bad either. It felt necessary. I sat down at the kitchen table. The sunlight came in sideways through the curtains. I looked at my hands, small, lined, veined, and realized something I hadn't noticed in a long while. They were steady. Not shaking. Not clenched. Not hiding tremors beneath polite gestures. Just still. That night, I slept well. The kind of sleep that comes not from peace, but from release. The next few days brought more calls, most of which I ignored. Augusta messaged again. Grandma, please. I can't get my books until the balance is cleared. I don't know what to do. I read it, sat with it, and didn't respond until evening. You'll figure it out. I believe in you. She didn't reply. But she saw it. By the end of the week, the panic had softened. No more calls. Just silence. A new kind. The silence of adjustment. The silence of people learning where your edges are. 2 weeks passed. Then one afternoon, a new message appeared. From Augusta. Just a photo, first. A small bouquet, 3 daisies, 2 carnations, wrapped in brown paper. A sticker that read, $3.49, Fresh Market. Then the caption. Got these with my own paycheck. I wanted you to have something just from me. No follow-up. No request. No links or attached bills. Just a gesture. I stared at the screen a long while before responding. Thank you, sweetheart. They're beautiful. I didn't say more. I didn't need to. That same afternoon, I walked through the apartment I just signed the lease for. Top floor. Bright windows. A view of the distant hills, not quite mountains, but enough to feel open. The living room smelled faintly of pine from the fresh floors. Real hardwood. I'd chosen them myself. I unpacked slowly. One box at a time. Books first. Then the tea set. Then the photo of Noel I kept in the ivory frame, the one where his eyes crinkled just so. And the coat, new, heavy, lined in soft fleece. I hung it by the door, knowing I'd wear it when the weather turned. That night, I sat on the little balcony with a blanket and a mug of mint tea, watching the sky dim from gold to ash. I listened to the wind move through the trees like it was rearranging old things. Old thoughts. Old expectations. The apartment wasn't big. But it was mine. No one else had a key. No one else expected anything from me here. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel needed. I felt free. 2 months passed. Long enough for fall to sharpen the air, for the trees to loosen their hold on the last yellow leaves. Long enough for Augusta to adjust to her new school, the public one with cement hallways and vending machines that ate your dollar. She never complained. Not to me, at least. Her texts changed, too. They weren't long. Just small check-ins. Hi Grandma, we made chicken tortilla soup in home EC today. I thought of you. Or. Got a B+ on my chem exam. I studied for real this time. Then, one afternoon, something more. She sent a photo of her hands, flour-dusted, holding a pie crust. Behind it, a kitchen I didn't recognize. Bare, clean, lit by a single overhead bulb. I'm learning to make things on my own. I hope it tastes even half as good as yours. That message stayed on my screen a long while. I didn't cry. I didn't even smile. I just sat with it, like a small ember I didn't want to blow out. Vanessa took longer. I expected that. The silence between us held different weight. Not shock. Not teenage confusion. But something older. Denser. The resentment of someone who'd come to believe in entitlement as an expression of love. Still, she called one Sunday. Not to apologize. Not quite. Mom, she began, her voice softer than I'd expected. I just wanted to check in. I was sitting by the window with a cup of cinnamon tea, the mountains smudged gray in the distance. I let her voice settle before I answered. Hello, Vanessa. How are you? I'm well. A pause. I know we haven't really talked. Not since, everything. I know. I've been thinking about things. About how much you've done for us. I didn't speak. She filled the space. You didn't have to pay for Augusta's school. Or the car. Or any of it. And I guess I let myself think it would always just be there. Another silence. This one was mine. I'm sorry, she said finally. It didn't land with fireworks. It didn't repair what had been frayed. But it existed. A beginning. Thank you for saying that, I said. And we stayed on the line, quiet, for nearly a minute. Eventually, she asked if she could bring Augusta by. I said yes. That Sunday, they arrived with a small bag of apples and a jar of local honey. Vanessa wore a scarf I hadn't seen before. Augusta had on a windbreaker and smelled faintly of cinnamon gum. We sat at my little table. They complemented the view. We had tea and shared slices of apple, dipped in honey. It wasn't much. But it was something. When they left, I stood on the balcony and waved as they walked to the car. Augusta turned and gave me a thumbs up, grinning. I watched them drive off, then came inside and placed the apple cores in the compost bin. Later that evening, I walked to my bedroom and pulled open the top drawer of my dresser. Inside, tucked beneath a stack of neatly folded linens, was the old notebook, the one I'd written the list in. I opened it. Turned past the page with the expenses. Past the tally marks and dates and neat columns. To a blank sheet. I took a pen and wrote. Freedom is not given. It is reclaimed. Then. I do not fund disrespect. I do not subsidize silence. I do not buy love. And finally. I live. On my terms. Quietly. But not invisibly. I closed the notebook and placed it back in the drawer. The wind outside shook the shutters softly. The scent of tea still lingered in the air. I stood in the doorway of my home, small, modest, mine, and felt a warmth spread through my chest that had nothing to do with radiators or blankets or tea. It was something deeper. The heat of self-worth. Of clarity. Of knowing that the quiet woman in the background had stepped forward, not to shout, but simply to stop disappearing. This was my life now. Unfunded by guilt. Unburdened by obligation. Lived not in apology, but in quiet, steady truth. And for the first time in years, I felt seen. By myself. And that was enough. The letter came on a Wednesday. Cream-colored envelope, thick paper, no return address, just my name in looping black ink. Inside, a handwritten note and a check, folded carefully. It was from Augusta. Dear Grandma. I opened a savings account last month. My first one. I've been working weekends at the smoothie bar, and I wanted to do something that felt right. This check isn't much. I know that. But I want to repay you, even if it takes a lifetime. I know what you did for me. I know now. You didn't have to give me anything, but you did. Quietly. Constantly. I didn't see it then, but I feel it now in every book I can afford, in every safe drive, every opportunity. You made it all possible. And I'm sorry I didn't see you. I do now. Love, Augusta. The check was for $84.17. I smiled. Tears came, not from sadness, but from something older, deeper. Recognition. Not of me as a bank, or a background fixture, or a reliable shadow. But as a woman. A builder. A presence. That weekend, I made butter cookies. The kind she used to love. Powdered sugar, just a little cracked on top. I wrapped them in parchment and walked to the mailbox with my coat buttoned high. The trees rustled softly. The air smelled faintly of wood smoke and something new. I mailed them to her dorm. No note. No explanation. Just sweetness, returned. Later that month, I hosted tea for a few neighbors, women I barely knew, but who carried their own silences. Carol, whose son hadn't called in years. Marta, who lost her daughter and never spoke of it. Nancy, who wore her grief in her posture and her pearls. We drank slowly, in mismatched cups. I told a little of my story, not the details, just the shape of it. The losing. The giving. The remembering. When I finished, they sat quiet. Then Marta reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. You're not alone, she said. And for once, I believed it. That night, I sat by the window, watching the lights flicker in the town below. I thought of Augusta working her shift, of Vanessa folding laundry in her too large house. I thought of every sacrifice I'd made, every bruise I'd swallowed for the sake of peace. And then I thought of myself, finally, fully. A woman who had given deeply. Who had drawn the line. And who, in doing so, had found her place not just in their lives, but in her own. Quietly. Powerfully. On her terms.